Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Akhilesh Pokhriyal and I'm the product manager for the Eggplant Monitoring Insights product. Today I'll be presenting highlights of the 2020 software release. The Eggplant Monitoring Insights product provides a consistent, reliable and repeatable method for automatic testing of your web or mobile applications and associated services. Okay, let's start by looking at how traditional synthetic monitoring tools typically work, including APM. So at the bottom, you have a data center which hosts your application, and then the monitoring solution is perhaps on the same data center or implemented on another data center and needs some sort of internet connectivity to go and reach your application. And this internet connectivity could itself be a source of variability in the tests, which you would like to avoid. Now, when there are issues on your application, you expect this monitoring solution to send you notifications and alerts. But you obviously require this monitoring solution to send you alerts only when there's a genuine problem with the application. So typically, the traditional services are using maybe just one connection to the internet, which is not ideal because that connection can itself introduce variability in the results. Secondly, the focus of traditional applications is on availability, so mainly ping type of synthetic monitors. Now, this means that although server-side issues can probably be noticed when there are issues, but client-side issues are basically not going to be picked up, or not enough of the client-side issues will be picked up by the traditional solutions. Further, the monitors are typically going and checking for a list of servers or specific API endpoints, again focusing more on server-side issues, server availability, etc. Then a lot of the traditional services are SaaS only, so they will provide a set of tools and documentation and expect customers to basically utilize those tools to understand how that monitoring solution works and to sort out the problems by themselves when they find issues. So the net result of all of this is that you may get alerts based on limited and incorrect data, unreliable data, which means that there may be a lot of false positives, also that there may be missed outages. So comparing this to our monitoring insight solution, firstly, we use multiple data centers to host our monitoring application, and these are hosted on private cloud, so our own hardware and software. Then they use multiple connections to the internet, typically from tier 1 providers, because we have redundancy in terms of the platform itself, but we also want diversity in terms of the connections to the internet, because we would like to avoid any kind of unreliability in results due to the internet connection itself. Next, we focus a lot on client-side issues. So we use a real browser, and as a result of that browser, we get access to a lot of detailed metrics on client side. So we use Chrome as the browser for testing real user journeys, not just the availability or of servers. So as I said, we are focusing quite a bit on client-side issues, and that means that we are able to handle the serverless deployment scenarios, because again, it's very difficult if you have implemented your application on public cloud to know which servers one should go and ping. So in terms of sort of user journeys, we can build synthetic monitors which emulate a very complex user journey with multiple events which require access to different public APIs. And so we can basically test that on a regular basis in a consistent manner, So you can see whether the third parties that you rely on are also up and running. And that is how complex web applications are working these days. So it's quite important to test them the way these complex user journeys. Next, we also provide a fully managed service, and our team of experts have a huge number of years of experience in the web application design and on looking at client and server-side issues. So they help our customers starting from defining the synthetic monitor, but they also proactively look at results and suggest changes to improve monitoring. So all of that means that the results that we produce or the platform produces are something that you can rely on, because we do not produce any false positives. In terms of how you consume the data from our platform, there are rich dashboards available, and we also have native apps both for iOS and Android. To summarize, the Eggplant Monitoring Insights product allows or facilitates monitoring of not just availability, but also performance, which includes usability, as we can use a real Chrome browser. We also help in error detection, and we facilitate diagnostics for error correction. So let's just look at the solution architecture in a bit of detail. So typically, your applications are hosted on servers that are under your control, which are connected to the internet, and this is where all the variability comes in. In our case, we make sure that our monitoring platform, is engineered to a high specification. It has multiple stable connections to the internet. So in this example, our platform hosted in the UK has 6 independent tier 1 connections to the internet. And as I mentioned earlier, we use a real Chrome browser to detect client-side issues, including usability issues. We follow the principle of double testing, which means in case our platform detects an error, we do a retest immediately after. And for that retest, we use a new instance of the browser, as well as a different connection to the internet, and to check whether this error really is an error. And using this principle, we minimize the possibility of false positives. So what are the advantages of using a real browser like Chrome? The key advantage is that it helps us to detect issues on the client side, as most problems occur there. We are also able to replicate a real user's behavior and what it actually sees. As a result of supporting Chrome, we are able to support all current as well as emerging web technologies like HTTP2. Chrome also provides us access to user experience metrics, which are low-level metrics, timing metrics such as onload for first contentful paint. We can replicate complex user journeys like multi-factor authentication. We are able to see JavaScript messages and are then able to detect whether there are errors. We are also able to capture the actual screenshots of what the end user sees, which is very useful for error diagnostics. So what are the key takeaways in terms of the strengths of our monitoring insights product? The first is in terms of its quality and the value of its actionable insights. We provide highly accurate test results, and we provide a very consistent way of testing your web services. We not only monitor availability and performance, but we can also emulate complex user journeys and workflows. You can trust in our data because we try and minimize the possibility of false positives. You can use our data to monitor SLAs of your third parties, We also provide historical data so you can do trend analysis. Secondly, we have a huge emphasis on managed services. We help you with defining the scripts for these monitors, including for complex user journeys. And we also keep looking at how to improve those monitors, so to make sure that you're getting the best value out of them. We have over 20 years of experience and expertise in doing this work. In terms of what we monitor, it is not just specific web pages and servers, but also FTP servers and email servers. We can monitor native apps. We can do competitor monitoring. We support multi-factor authentication and monitoring of key user journeys. We can monitor APIs as well as third-party assets that you rely on. I'd like to answer some of the questions that I've received on the first part of the presentation. So the first question is, do we support international monitoring? The answer is yes. We currently have 12 international monitoring node locations across Europe, North and South America, Africa, and Asia. If you need more details, then please do send your questions over and I will provide the answers accordingly. Next question is, do all synthetic monitors utilize the real Chrome browser, which is like the underlying agent technology? The answer is no. For specific use cases, the Chrome browser is absolutely relevant, like if you want to test a complex user journey or you want to get client-side timing information. But for other types of synthetic monitors, where, for example, you would only like to see the availability of a particular web page, we have agent technology which can support this kind of monitoring without the use of a real Chrome browser. Next question is, what is the uptime target for our platform and our service? And this is obviously talking about the monitoring insights. So the uptime target for our service at the application level is 99.9%. Next question is, how often should one test using a synthetic monitor? So our recommended default setting for the test frequency for any monitor is 5 minutes. The next question is service status information for our monitoring insight service available via a public status page? Yes, we have recently started providing status updates of our service on status page. So that is eggplant.statuspage.io. I will provide this information via email as well to the person who's asked me this question. The last question is, do we provide notifications on any planned maintenance tasks on our platform? And the answer is yes again. This information is also available on our status page. And as I said, it is again on eggplant.statuspage.io. Please keep your questions coming and I will try and answer them as soon as I can. Thank you. Next, I will provide a brief demonstration of the product. The test results and reports available in Monitoring Insights are typically accessed via our dashboards through any browser. We also provide APIs for programmatically editing of existing Selenium scripts, as well as for sharing of test results and for updating status of monitoring and alerting. So this here is the landing page of the portal of the Monitoring Insights application, which is available on Eggplant Cloud using the URL shown here at the top. So when you reach the landing page, you will see a list of synthetic monitors that are currently configured for a given account. For this particular demonstration account, we have configured 2 synthetic monitors in order to keep it simple. The first one is a a user journey monitor called purchase and checkout, as shown here. This user journey monitor has 8 steps configured. And the second one is a page monitor called our shops. The page monitor is rather simple. It basically goes and checks whether a particular website is available or not, and whether it loads properly and loads quickly enough. The user journey monitor is more complex. It tests business workflow. In this particular case, a user logs into the site, searches for a particular item of food or a meal, selects it, enters their postcode, selects home delivery, and clicks checkout. So in this case, the user journey monitor will check the complete end-to-end workflow and basically try and ensure that it's all working correctly all the way to the end. If any errors are detected, then on a step-by-step basis, we can make a note of it and indicate it in the portal. The errors are indicated by severity, so they can be amber for if it's a warning, red if it's a performance issue, and black, which you can't see here, but when the site is down, when there is a major problem with availability, for example. So on this page, the color indicates the status of severity recorded in the last test. So for user journey, we detected a red error because the last step had a red error. And for the page monitor, the last test had an amber. So that is what you will see when you are looking at the monitors page. There's more information available on this page. For example, the load column indicates the time that it took to complete this particular synthetic monitor in the last run. So for the user journey, it took around just over 24 seconds, whereas for the page monitor, around just over 4 seconds. Variance indicates how different the performance was in the last test compared to yesterday's average. And date time indicates the time when the test was conducted most recently. And then the next column shows the error duration. So for example, in the last step, we've detected a red error, and this error has not gone away, and it's been open since 2 weeks and 1 day. Then the last 2 columns basically give us the status of monitoring. So you could have a synthetic monitor configured, which you have decided to actually not use, in which case the monitoring would have been disabled. But in this example, both of these monitors are in active use, and alerting is also being switched on for each individual step and for the monitor itself. So it's a very granular configuration that is allowed and supported. Further, if a customer has a large number of monitors, then one can select favorites, which the portal will remember when you log in, and then you can basically see just the favorites. It's a way to filter some of the monitors to make it easy for people to navigate their way through the various monitors. So next, I would like to show you the status page here, which is a summary dashboard. Gives a high-level summary of the current status of the monitors. So as we know that the user journey monitor has been showing a red error, and it shows all this information in a very clear and easy way to review. And you could sort of use this as a dashboard on another screen, for example. This page is refreshed every 30 seconds, as you can see here at the top. So next, if I'd also like to mention that there is a very detailed tutorial available here in video tutorials for all of the capability that is available through these rich dashboards, and there is a lot of capability here. The other thing to mention is that you could go into the support area, and there, if you click on codes, what you will see is a detailed definition of the severity. So the 4 levels that I discussed for any synthetic monitor. you'll also get a very detailed list of all the different result codes that we support. And as you can see in this matrix, we don't just support website monitoring, as I've also already mentioned. There are different codes for email server, testing, and so on. But website is the one that is most commonly used, and there you can see all the different result codes that we support, and it's a rather long list. The other thing is status codes. So these are obviously the HTTP status codes that we will also indicate where applicable in the details for the various test results. I will show you those. And we have defined some of the custom status codes as well, because sometimes there are these scenarios which are not covered by HTTP codes, but they're still very relevant. So let's go back to the monitors page. And if you click on any monitor, you will see this dialog box, which shows all the various reports that the Monitoring Insights dashboards currently support. This is listed here. The reports are generally in the areas of errors, performance, and availability. And they go into a lot of details, and I'll show some of these to you next. You can also run a manual test on any monitor on an ad hoc basis. Say, you saw that a synthetic monitor has indicated an error, you got an alert, you go into the portal, and just for the sake of checking whether it was just a blip, you can run an ad hoc manual test and see whether that error still exists, instead of waiting for, say, another 5 minutes for the next test to run. Similarly, at the bottom here, you will see a high-level sort of configuration of this particular synthetic monitor. For example, this monitor is running every 5 minutes, and also we can constrain the speed in the downlink for the synthetic monitor. So you can kind of emulate various scenarios like access through a cellular network where speeds could be limited, say using a third generation cellular network, and so on. So let's look at the main results or reports in the portal. If you click again on any monitor, the key report is test results. It shows all of the tests that have been done for this particular synthetic monitor. So by default here, we can see at the top by looking at the header that this is for the user journey monitor. And we are looking at this test results report, and the date range is the last 24 hours. And of course, you can change this date range and go back and look at historical information. So the most recent tests are at the top. And as I was telling you earlier, we follow a principle of double testing. So for example, in this case, every time a test took place and it came back with a error code, a red error, for example, soon after we will do a retest. And so you will see that pattern appear. So as we know that this test is being done every 5 minutes, you will see that the intervals between the two tests is roughly 5 minutes. So you can see 11:09, 11:14, 11:19, and so on. But a retest is done just after the test is finished when there is an error. And if both the test and retest indicate an error condition, only in that case will an alert be sent out. Okay, so now we know that we can see the latest errors on any monitor. And in this particular case, for the user journey monitor, there's a red error, the latest run, and the result code is 23, expected phrase not found. So let's look at what exactly is happening. So as we know that the issue was at step number 8, click checkout, right? So there was a problem there. So you can quickly jump into the detailed view by clicking on this icon here called chart waterfall. And what you will see is a very detailed view of all the objects that are being downloaded as part of this step, and also the particular object where this problem was detected, which is highlighted. So you get a very detailed view of the sequence in which these events are taking place across time. So you can see this also as a list view by clicking this icon here. So now you will see a list with all of the key metrics appearing as a table, and you can export this data to a CSV as well. So you can also see a screenshot exactly of the page or the image where the issue was found. So in this case, it was something to do with this particular image. The issue is obviously expected phrase not found. So now if we go back to the other view, which was the view as a block diagram, we can then quickly jump from a single test to a performance breakdown view. This is another report which basically shows a historical trend of the performance view of this particular step. So it's red because of the problem that we found, but basically you can see in terms of timing for each particular test how the various key steps, how much time did they take, the various phases of page load, and how do they vary over time. So another useful report is performance distribution, which shows the distribution of the duration that it took for the monitors to complete their work, and the number of tests for those durations. So for example, in this case, for that last step, predominant number of tests took 2 to 3 seconds. So if I were to change this for the page monitor or shops, you can see that most of the tests took between 3 and 4 seconds to complete. So next, look at the report availability. So this report basically shows, what has been the situation with errors on a given monitor over the selected period. So for example, the hour shops monitor has been showing a warning for 99.85%, so 6 days, over 6 days, almost 7 days during this period. And if we change this to a month, the situation it's been mainly showing the amber. And if we now change to the user journey as a complete monitor, then for the entire duration of last month, it has been showing the red error. So this is also very useful as it gives a view, an easy summary view of what has been happening on this monitor, and this can be done on a per step level as well. So for example, specific steps have been all right, but I think as we kind of now know that the problematic step has been click checkout in this case. Now I'd like to talk briefly about the alert options. So alerting is available through the support section, which I had shown you previously. So here, if you go to account settings and then alerts, you will find this whole section around alerts. So in terms of alerting, when we detect double failure, we can send an alert depending on configuration to some profiles. So it all depends on configuration. So in this case, there is one profile configured, and in this profile there are specific contacts and how they should be sent an alert to. So whether by email or a voice call or a text message, and also you can configure whether the alert should be sent for when the error occurs, or also when a recovery happens. There are also ways to manage escalation. So here basically you can specify that, say for example, when the first time a double failure happens, the alert should be sent to a particular group of people, whereas say tier 2 support should be notified when multiple successive instances of double failures happen, and so on. So it's a highly configurable method, flexible method of managing alerts in your organization. So this concludes the product demonstration, and I wanted to just quickly summarize what we have seen in the portal today. So on the main landing page, you can see a list of all the currently active synthetic monitors, including the detailed steps for user journey monitors. You can see other details about the last test. You can see whether there's an error in the last test, if the error has been persistent, you can see for how long this error has been active. You can see on the status page a dashboard view for each one of your monitors in terms of its current status. Then if you click on any monitor, you get a menu of all the various reports that are available, which are grouped into reports dealing with errors, with performance, as well as availability. I've shown you step waterfall and object waterfall charts, which give a very detailed view of the various objects that are being loaded during a journey or during the course of a test. And also screenshots are available which can aid in diagnostics. Here you can quickly see how often a test is being run, and I've also shown you the area of the portal where you can see how alerting has been currently set. And please remember that all of the test data, the current status of the monitors, is also available via our mobile app, which also supports push notifications. Next, I would like to talk about some of the features that we've been working on recently. The first is Webhooks for alerting. This was released in Q4 2019. So this is a popular method these days of pushing notifications downstream to third-party services such as PagerDuty, ServiceNow, Slack, etc. And it's mainly utilized for incident management purposes. So as is shown in this picture here on the right, if you have webhooks enabled, then you can set up new webhooks via the support page on the portal. And it's relatively straightforward to do that. Some of our customers have started using webhooks. So we know that these can be integrated successfully with third parties. Also, you can select whether you want the webhook to be triggered only when an error is opened or also when it is closed, as shown here. Next, let's look at the 2020 roadmap for the Monitoring Insights product, which is shown in this slide here. So Q1 2020, we are targeting the self-service Monitoring Insights API, which we have actually managed to release as well successfully. So this API allows customers to remotely, programmatically update existing Agent 10 based monitors. I'll give some more details shortly on this feature. In Q2, we are currently working on a feature called Fine Grain Scheduling Control, which allows in certain cases, and I would say they are exceptional cases, for customers to request for precise start times for certain specific monitors, and in that case our managed services staff can set those up via back office. In Q3, we are planning to work on the feature UX data points as well as CPU usage. So these will be new metrics which we want to bring into existing reports on the portal, so it will be easier for our customers to get this fine level of detail which is available from the Chrome browser. We will also be improving the UI layout of the portal itself. And in Q4, we hope to implement a feature around improving accessibility to JavaScript errors. Obviously, JavaScript is an important part of most web pages these days, and our customers want such errors to be easily accessible with as much detail as possible, so that they can monitor these assets, and these could be even third-party assets. So we've released a new API called Self-Service Monitoring Insights API in Q1 of this year. So normally our managed service team would ensure that monitors are kept up to date, and we will generally receive requests from our customers to update monitors from time to time. But now with the help of this API, our customers can themselves update their Agent 10 based user journey monitors, which will allow them to ensure that they are always relevant. So basically, it also means that the process of updating monitors can be integrated into their existing CI/CD workflows. Detailed information and documentation on this API is available on Swagger as shown here. Oh, I've received some questions on the self-service monitoring insights API, so let me just try and answer those. The first question is, can I use the new API to update any synthetic monitor? The answer is no. This new API can only be used to update Agent 10 based user journey monitors. So this is basically Selenium script codes. So the existing script code can be updated using this API. You cannot create any new monitors either. Next, can I use this API to add new monitors? No, this API can only be used to update existing monitors. Another question is, can I use the same API to update alert settings for the monitor? And again, the answer is no. We already have an API which can be used to update the alert settings for the existing monitors. Thanks for your questions. In Q3 2020, we are planning to introduce the feature UX data points. So this slide provides highlights for this feature. We would like to introduce some new metrics into the MI portal and existing reports. These metrics are focusing on client-side performance issues, because as I mentioned, that this is where most of the issues are seen these days. So the new metrics that we would like to introduce are CPU usage, as well as timing points such as first content full paint, largest content full paint, first input delay, DOM complete time, time to interactive, etc. So in the picture here, we've shown an example of how the new data points could be introduced in existing reports. So object performance breakdown is an existing report, which shows a trend of the tests. And for each test, it gives details of the various timing points. And so we could, as an example, introduce these new timing points into this existing report. This will allow our customers to perform a very detailed analysis of how the pages are being rendered on the client side, which will help them track the performance of their web applications over time and diagnose issues and errors. This brings us to the end of this session. I hope you found it informative. I have tried to answer some of the questions, and I will follow up with the respective individuals on remaining questions. And I really appreciate the time that you have spent today listening and learning more about the Eggplant Monitoring Insights product. Thank you for your participation.